Welcome to Happy Hour with Haley. I'm Haley Chura, and I'm joined today by our second guest co-host, Katie Treston-Torney. Welcome, Katie.
Haley, this is such a cool moment. I am so excited. Thanks for having me.
This has been a long time in the making. I think we first talked about this more than a year ago when we were in Vancouver for the Taylor Swift concert. And we talked about how we should start a podcast. And I think there was even some talk about starting one at that time, but I didn't bring a microphone, which is odd because I almost travel everywhere with a microphone. But that one trip, I forgot it. So it's taken me a year to get my you-know-what together, but I'm so glad you're here.
I'm so excited to be here. We did talk about this in Vancouver. We talked about it in Mesa. Mesa was going to be our first episode, and Chattanooga. So we really have had a year of thinking about this episode. And also we talked about it briefly for Kona 2023. But then a lot came up, and that's a big time to plan a podcast recording too. So I'm so excited.
Yes, well, because originally I think I was going to have you as a guest, and now you are a guest co-host. So if anyone has listened to the first two episodes, Jocelyn Wong Neal, the Wong Star, guest co-hosted on that. But we want to make sure people can, do this when they're busy and they have lives and they have other things going on. So we have a rotating cast of characters, and just to keep things interesting. And so, Katie, you will be one of those frequent contributors, and I think you have an interesting perspective on the sport and life, and I'm excited to have you on. In full disclosure, Katie is a good friend of mine and as well as one of my athletes that I coached. And you have raced as an amateur, you've raced as a pro, and we're going to talk about that journey. But first, this is Happy Hour with Haley. And did you bring a beverage? I didn't really warn you about this.
Okay, but I did listen to your first episode, and no one will ever call me unprepared. So yes, but also you put a long ride on my schedule this morning. And so I feel like I do have to balance friend and co-host and athlete all in once. So I put it in a fancy glass to keep the happy hour motive going. But it is sparkling water with electrolytes and then creatine. So yeah,
Whoa,
cheers.
So cute.
What do you have?
The coach / other host completely failed on this. This was a cup of coffee.
What is happening?
Moments before I came into the studio, I think I was a minute or two late, I knocked this off the table and I spilled an entire cup of coffee on the floor. So I'm really sorry. This was actually a very cool mug. I had to show it off. My first episode, I had a pint glass that was a gift from Lauren Palmer. This was a coffee mug that was also a gift from Lauren Palmer. She is, in addition to being a great athlete, really good at giving, we're very into beverages, into drinks, into vessels. And so I had this special mug and I just broke it. And the coffee is all over the ground, and we'll deal with that after I record. It's been a morning. I'm here recording in Bozeman, Montana, and I did not do a long ride, but I did do a lot of snow blowing for myself and my neighbors. I don't own a snowblower, but one of my neighbors does. And I live in a condo community, and the HOA voted to have no one do snow removal to save money, which is great if you don't have a large driveway and a lot of sidewalk and you are the only person physically capable of going out there and doing it. So I guess their plan B is the retired professional triathlete does the snow blowing, but at least I didn't have to drive the snowblower. Store the snowblower, but I do try to get out there. There is someone who does the road, so you try to get out there before they do the road. So I'm actually very sweaty, and so I'm wearing a hat. I just got in from that, and I was really excited about my coffee and chatting with you, and it didn't quite happen, but that's life, right?
Well, a few things are true. Number one, Lauren is a fantastic gift giver. Two, always feel like you can delay the start of the podcast if you spill coffee. I feel like you need a beverage. So I wish you would have just delayed it a little longer and gotten a beverage. And three, I live in northern Michigan, and we started out with a really tough season. We got multiple feet of snow, and you were running in shorts, if I recall. Well, I felt like it was the North Pole up here. And now we have a reverse reality. We have freezing rain and sleet and all things terrible weather while you're getting the snow. So enjoy it. But I hope that you send some of the snow this way, because all of our ski resorts are pretty icy right now.
Our ski resorts are actually open, but I did run on Christmas Day in a tank top and shorts, which was wild. So we are recording this in between Christmas and New Year's, even though this will be our first episode of the new year. But the snow is here, and it's actually not that bad. This was a little bit of a heavier snow than I anticipated, but we like it, right? We like living in the northern climates, and this is part of the trade-off. And you mentioned you were on the bike this morning. So maybe to give our listeners a little bit, do you have like an elevator pitch on yourself, who you are, and maybe we could end with like what you're doing for New Year's.
I think of myself kind of in 3 buckets. I would say bucket number 1 is I'm a mom and a wife. I have a 4-year-old and I am married to an infectious disease pharmacist. I would say bucket number 2 is I'm a professional triathlete. I have an incredible coach. You're my coach. I'm entering in my 3rd year as in my pro career. And then bucket number 4 is I'm a physician assistant. I've worked in trauma, acute care surgery, and surgical critical care for the last 10 years. And then recently made a lateral over to academia. And so now I teach baby PAs and teach people to become physician assistants, which is really lovely.
And you still practice as a physician assistant. I know this. Your shifts are on your training peaks.
Yeah, thank you for being patient. I'm like currently on winter break from my academia job, but then I picked up more in the hospital. I do still work clinically. I think it's pretty important to keep your clinical skills up, and it makes me relevant to my students. And when I talk to my students about being out in the real world, I think they really enjoy when I give them information on the shift that I'm working. It makes them realize that the things that I'm telling them are very relevant and work out in the workforce. And a lot of my passion is to improving the landscape of medicine and improving the well-being of providers. And I do that by taking the lessons that I'm trying to teach my students out into the workforce. A huge shift, though, in my practice is I have stopped doing as many night shifts and as many swing shifts. And I found that I really had a difficult time training at a high level with doing a lot of night shifts and swing shifts. And so moving into academia has allowed me a little bit more of a normal, quote unquote, schedule. And that has been monumental to, I think, longevity in sport, but just also like me as a human being and my resiliency. And so that's been a really good life shift over the last year.
So that shift wasn't just because you're a professional triathlete.
I think I think that I was starting to feel the weight of working night shifts and working the swing shifts, but it is compounded trying to train at a high level. I mean, you always did a really good job on looking at my night shifts, and you would never put a hard workout the day after a night shift because I would be hanging by a thread. And when those start compounding one on top of the other, I'm like, I'm not really recovering. I'm not sleeping well. I feel like I'm not getting the most of my potential. And so that's when I really made steps to make that shift. And it's been really good. I love going to bed all large at the same time every night. My tiny human, sleeps through the night now. You know, we had a couple years there in the beginning where we had multiple wake ups during the night. And I didn't know how much that I missed a continuous night of sleep until now when I am getting that. I'm like, this is chef's kiss. This is beautiful.
Avoid that puppy. Avoid that new puppy, you know, that you want to get. Like, that's what I always feel like. You're like, oh, I'm sleeping through the night. Or like, and people then are like, oh, I got a puppy. But they are cute though. But so
They're so
tiny
cute.
humans.
Yes.
And you work in trauma. I am curious about how those skills, do you feel like the skills you learn in your career help you as a professional triathlete? Because I can imagine, I haven't worked in that sphere, but I can imagine that, you know, it pays to be calm sometimes on race day when things are going wrong.
Yeah, I think that every part of my life kind of improves the other parts of my life. I think that I am wired a little bit that when there's a really, really high stress situation, I feel this almost calming effect. And I feel like I become very analytical and I follow a pathway of what my training has done to bring me to that point. And I don't think that's something you can learn. I do feel like a lot of that is just how you're wired, that kind of the more chaotic the situation and the more high acuity and the more stress, I almost get this calming effect. And I just see like what's right in front of me and take care of the job at large. Now, that doesn't mean that like once it's all settled, then I feel the emotions and I feel the weight and I feel everything that has been put in front of me. But in the moment, I don't. And I think that that is really helpful for me in racing too, that I'm very much able to just be in the moment. You know, when I have an Ironman race, I never think of the run when I'm in the swim. I never think of the run. Even when I'm on the bike, I'm always in the moment and what can I do in that moment when I'm racing to get me to the next step. But the next step is always right in front of me. And I think that ability to just really focus in on what I'm doing helps with training a lot. I think a lot of the indoor training, which I am in the minority, I really don't mind being in the trainer. I can stay very present in what I'm doing and not get too caught up on how long the task is going to be or how long I'm going to be in that position. I can kind of disassociate for lack of a better word and just stay like very in the moment.
And from your social media, I do know that you can read a book on the trainer, which I have
I
never been
don't
able
know
to
how
do.
you can't.
I sweat too
Well,
much. One, it would ruin the book.
a few things are true. Number one, you always give me the most delightful warm up. Like you just
I love a
really
warm-up.
ease me. And yes, the warm up is fantastic. So I take the warm up to read. And then I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm just going to get through the warm up. I'm not yet sweaty because my workout room is in my gym and it is so cold out there. So it takes a while to sweat. And then as soon as I start sweating, I will shut it down and listen to music. Or if it's an easy effort, I'll watch YouTubes, which we need more female athlete YouTubes out there. There's just, I go through them way too
We're doing our part
quickly.
right now.
We're doing
This is
one.
going to be on YouTube,
This
so
is
you can watch yourself
lovely.
over and over.
Beautiful. I don't know. The voice thing gives me the cringe a little bit, but it'll be lovely. And then like today you gave me 3x14-minute efforts. And so then I let myself in the 3x14 minutes listen to music. And that feels like a little carrot. And then during the recovery and the warm up and the cool down, I'll do other things. What do you do?
If it's a hard ride, music only. Usually I like repetition. So sometimes I will
Okay.
listen to like the same song over and over. Or a same like 3 songs. I do this on the treadmill as well. Or I can do like the Eras Tour set list or like the Reputation section of the Eras Tour set list, that kind of thing. If it's an easier ride, I will do a show, a movie, usually something that I've seen before because I honestly can't focus. And that's why I can't read a book. There's no way I would get that. Like even like listening to an audiobook or a podcast is a little bit too much like mental stimulation for me. So I am like things I've already done before. That's what works for me.
Do you have like one song that you feel embodies like a training block? Like, do you have one song in your build up to Kona that you listen to that now if you hear it, you're like, oh, I feel nostalgia because I listened to that song like over and over?
Yes, I do. I would often do that. I'm retired now, as everyone should know, because I feel like I'm singing it from the rooftops, but from professional racing. But I did do that quite frequently, where I would have a song leading into certain races, and it's a good and bad thing because I think then if the race goes well, you feel good about it. If the race goes bad, you're like, I hate that song.
Okay, so that was me, like Kona 2023. I listened to Long Live by Taylor Swift over and over. But then my Kona 2023 was a really, really difficult race. So it took me about a year to be able to listen to that song again. But now I hear it and I'm like, oh, the nostalgia for that song. And it like brings me back to that. But what was your song?
I would say, I think leading into this Kona 2025, the Sabrina Carpenter album came out, Man's Best Friend, and I really like the song. I really like the song House Tour. And I would listen to that. And then Taylor Swift, Life of a Showgirl came out like 1 week before the race, which I listened to a lot. I liked Father Figure a lot going into it, but actually The Life of Ophelia, which is the first track on that album, is like kind of the one that probably brings me back to Kona the most because my coach Matthew Rose and his wife were out on the Queen K blasting that from their rental car. And so now that's probably the song that like most reminds me of Kona is The Life of Ophelia by Taylor Swift. So, and in a very, very good way.
I love that. And to associate that with any positive feelings while running on the Queen K is just amazing.
I know. I was suffering. It's but you know, suffering isn't always bad. And like you've said with Kona 2023 for you, with time, even those performances that were really hard, I think you come to like appreciate that a little bit more and you know, and like it a little bit more. And we can go more into, I want to go more into your transition from racing as an age grouper, which you did in 2023, and then 2024 and 2025 you have raced as a pro. plan to continue in 2026. But I did ask at the top of the show, what are your plans for New Year's? Do you have plans? Are you someone who stays up or do you go to bed?
Oh my gosh, I'm a human that goes to sleep. I love sleep and I work the next day, which is not an excuse, but also I would much rather get a full night of sleep. We, on YouTube, you can watch the ball drop in other time zones. And so the tiny human and Nick and I will like watch a ball drop at just probably 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then we will go to sleep. Even like in the height of my 20s, like to stay up that late, I didn't love it. I'm not a night person. I am very much like routinely, I will get up at 3:30 in the morning and that feels very easy for me. But to stay up past midnight is so difficult. So I don't have any fun plans. What about you?
Fair enough. I have a 5 p.m. dinner reservation, which is not very New Year's Eve-ish, but it's a restaurant I've never been to. Bizarrely in Bozeman, I've never been to this restaurant. I'm actually not convinced it's even a real restaurant. Like it's so difficult to get into and relatively new that I'll have to report back on if this was even a real restaurant. Like I got a call yesterday confirming this reservation and I was like, it's a scam. They're canceling it because I just couldn't believe I actually got a reservation. So I'll report back if this was a real restaurant or not. I haven't, but
Please do.
5 p.m. was like the only time available. So I was like, I'll do it.
Yes.
In past years, I'm in Mountain Time. I've watched the ball drop Eastern Time, called it, at 10 p.m. I like staying up late, so I probably will be awake. Last year I tried to run a race at midnight that got canceled in New York. This year, if the weather's decent, like I have once gone for a run at midnight. It was when I lived in Atlanta. It actually wasn't that much fun. It's kind of scary, like because there's just like a lot of drunk drivers out, so you want to avoid roads, but which is not my scene. The like drunk driver kind of situation, but I could do like a little like trail run if the weather's nice. I don't know. Lots
That
of
kinda sounds
possibilities.
lovely.
I
Yes.
know. There is something about like starting the year on that kind of a note. I feel like that's kind of neat. But also sleeping is great too. That's a great way to start a new year. I do that. So
Get a good score on my
I think
Aura ring. Yes. So good.
yeah, that might be the way to do it. But I am excited to have you on the show as our first episode of the new year. And I think as a triathlete, you're probably in good company as far as getting an early night sleep, sleeping maybe past 3:30 a.m. Like maybe you could sleep till like 4:35, like go
Be
crazy.
lovely. Yes.
And then do a little workout and enjoy the new year. So lots of fun things. Katie, we need to talk about this transition from age grouper to pro because I feel like there are quite a few people who have done that in recent years. I used to get questions about it. And I'd love to hear your perspective because you are a wife, you're a mom, and you have not left your other career and your job, even though you've made a few changes. You still work full time, very full time, because you're also now a podcast co-host. The not-for-profit part of your career. So I am
good.
curious about how you feel. It's been a little more than a year now since you made that transition and how you feel about it.
Yeah, my triathlon career has been kind of fast and furious. I played college volleyball and then after that found running and had these grandiose dreams of running for the rest of my life. And then I got pregnant and pregnancy, I also thought during pregnancy I'd be able to run the entire time. That was my goal, was like the day of delivery I was going to be running. And unfortunately I had some pretty bad pubic symphysis dysfunction, so I wasn't able to run through pregnancy. And that started pretty early. That was at about 12 weeks of being pregnant. I started having a lot of pelvic pain. So I found Peloton bike riding through pregnancy, and that was a really great way for me to stay active a little bit. And I started to fall in love with the cross training, and I got in the pool a couple times, and I'm not a swimmer by any means, but it just felt really lovely to be in the water. And then I had the birth of Bear, and that was great. And also, it takes a while to get back to running postpartum. And all of a sudden, you went from this identity of being you and being your person. And all of a sudden, I felt that even though it's beautiful and wonderful, my only identity was being a mother. And I really, really missed the identity of doing something for myself. And so I felt really lost initially postpartum. And felt like I really, really needed something that I could put on my schedule or I could work towards just to help me navigate. It was during the pandemic. I was working in healthcare. I had a new tiny human. I just needed something that felt like I could enjoy it and it could be my time. And so I got in the pool a couple times and I was going through podcasts and I found your podcast and I was like, oh, this is incredible. So I started listening to all of your like backlogged podcasts at that time. And I was like, man, they make Ironman training sound so cool. Like this sounds like such a fun sport. So I had reached out to you on Instagram and was like, I know nothing. And you're the only person I like parasocially know in this sport. Can you give me an idea of coaches or where I can turn? Like I bought a book off Amazon, but I really have no idea like what to do. And you were like, well, I actually coach. And I was like, oh, can I be your athlete? And you said yes. And you've been coaching me ever since.
Wow. I don't know if I like fully realized you were so new to the sport because
Yes.
you initially like immediately wanted to get into Ironman.
Yeah, I am not a human that goes like half in on things. And so I felt like I needed a big scary thing to like give me a little bit of umph in that period of life. And so I remember like trying so hard to sell myself to you. I was like, I have run a marathon. I was like, I'm not sure, but this feels like a job, like interview. And you were like, yeah, we'll take it slow in the beginning and we'll just see how you started putting in cross training in there. And you really held me back a lot in running initially, because I told you everything I went through in pregnancy. And you made me fall in love with cross training and swimming and biking and the process of trying to do multiple sports all in once. So we put together, I think, 6 months maybe of training. And then the week before my first Ironman, which was going to be Ironman Texas, I came down with my whole family came down with norovirus and the stomach flu. And I called you and I was like, I don't think I was sobbing on the phone and I was like, I don't know what to do. I've just done so much time and effort for this race. It's my first one. And you were like, well, you're still a week out. Let's see how things go. Well, let's take it day by day. We don't have to make a decision at this moment. At that point, I was already getting through it a little bit. You're like, let's just take it day by day and see what the week brings you. And so we did that. And I ended up turning the corner and could eat and got in a good place to go race. But I was pretty depleted. That race, it was everything I needed in that moment. It wasn't like the picture perfect first Ironman. It was so hard, but it also reminded me that I can do hard things and like my body is really resilient. It went through pregnancy, it went through birth, it went through postpartum, but despite all of that and being in the trenches of the pandemic and working in healthcare and not sleeping and all of that, it felt really good to push myself and it felt really good to like believe in my body and believe that like I am capable of doing hard things. And so it was just like such a moment of self-confidence that I fell in love with the sport despite it being the hardest day of my life. And I'm still so thankful for that hard day because now I feel like I can have hard days and say it was nothing compared to like that day in what I was going through in that period of life. And so that's been a really great thing to compare kind of everything else towards. So we talked after the race and you're like, the training that you put in doesn't go away just because the race day didn't come together. All the work that you've put in over the last 6-8 months, it doesn't go away. And so let's recover a little bit. And if you want to do another one, I'll help you do that. But just know that the training that you put in doesn't just disappear. And so took a little bit of a break. I was also racing a canoe in those times. And so we've shifted a little bit over to canoe racing. And then Ironman Arizona was later that year. And I had kind of what felt like a perfect day. The effort felt very controlled. The weather is in my favor when it's a little bit colder and things just started to click. And I just had the most fun day out there. I don't think I stopped smiling from the start to the finish. And we had talked after that race. And I think I was 5th age group overall at that race. And I remember you talking to me and you were like, When we start talking about goals and things for next year, if you very much are in contention, if you wanted to take your pro card, it's something we could talk about. I don't want to push you into that, but if it's something that you're interested in, I think that's a realistic goal. And I needed to hear that from somebody else. I needed somebody else to like believe in me in that moment, because for me, I was like a 35-year-old person. I thought my athletic height was behind me. I was also very new in the sport. And so to have somebody externally be like, I think if you want to take this next step, it's well within your purview and within your capabilities. And then the next year I qualified for my pro card. And also then had a lot of imposter syndrome. And you were like, you earned it. You are allowed to go on that start line. You are allowed to line up next to those women, and you're allowed to rejoice or celebrate what you have accomplished. And that's really what these last couple of years of my pro career have felt like. It's felt like an accomplishment of a lot of years of hard work. It's felt like, it's felt more like a celebration than anything else. And this is a really cool life moment. And this is something that I get to look back on and cherish this time. I found incredible community in the pro women's field. I'd love to hear your experiences too, but one of my favorite parts of racing as a pro is just lining up next to other pro women, and you see the same women time and time again. You rack your bikes next to them, and people are like, just kind. They're talking to you about regular things, and you just feel this sense of community and belonging when you're lining up next to them. And sometimes you'll look over at the pro men's field and it's very like chest out, no talking, like kind of trying to intimidate one another. And that's not the feel that I get in the women's racing field, which I love. Like, I remember my first pro start field was Ironman Texas, and I was so nervous. And another pro woman next to me looked at me and she's like, I am so nervous. I can't believe we're doing this. And just like talked to me as a human. And I was like, oh, this is really cool that we're not here. Pro women racing has escalated so much and is at such a high level. But when you uncouple all of that, everyone's just a human and everyone's just out there to get the best out of themselves. And I think that the women's field really embraces community and embraces like, let's get the best out of each other, and less of an intimidation tactic. And so, it's been a really awesome community. It's an awesome experience. And I'm really grateful that you believed in me in those at the start of all of this to make me believe that I could get here.
That is cool hearing you tell that story. And I think to kind of give myself a visual of the timeline, because it is wild to me how quickly it escalated, and it is different than my own story. But you do your first Ironman April 2022. Does not go well. But then Ironman Texas. But then you come back Arizona in November. Your fifth amateur. So you're on the podium for your age group. You're getting that Kona slot. You're top 5 overall amateurs. Very different race experience. So then we race all of 2023 as an amateur, where you are getting on podiums. You're winning your age group. You are getting, ranking really high in those overall amateur ranks. And then you did also race Kona, where even though it was a hard day and maybe not your best day, I think you were still top 20, 25 in your age group. And still a very, very solid first Kona experience. I think everyone will say Kona is a race that it helps to have experience at, and you got that, and you still did do very, very solid performance. And so 2024 is your first pro year. So it is a very quick escalation. And I am curious, if you think back to that first pro race, Ironman Texas 2024, this is a race you'd raced twice as an amateur. What was different? What was different as a pro versus as an amateur?
It was just this feeling, this pressure that I kept telling myself, like, there is no pressure. But despite what I kept telling myself, it felt like there was an incredible amount of pressure. It was also the first time there had been a pro series, or the pro series started, and that was the first pro series race. And in that came just such an incredible, opportunity, but it did feel like everything was escalated so much more than even what I see now in a non-pro series, a pro race. And It is a very, very different race dynamic to start all of the women in the water with a gun going off and everyone going so fast as compared to the age group where, you line up 5 at a time and a little buzzer goes off and you nicely walk into the water and everyone's seated with where they think their swim capabilities are. I had never done a mass swim start before that day. And so to be in the water and all of a sudden I'm looking at people that are at the absolute pointy end of our sport. They're the top of the sport and they're treading water right next to you and you just have to go. Um, that made it very, very different. And I was having the swim wasn't great, but it was fine for me. And then I got on the bike, and about 25 miles in, I took a pretty hard crash. And I was on the side and I was devastated. But above all, I just wanted to finish. I didn't want to walk off that course and have my first pro race be a DNF. And so in hindsight, I made maybe not the smartest decision, but decided to continue riding. In hindsight, I realized I broke a few ribs through that, and it made for a very, very hard bike ride. And I was trying so hard to push, but I also was coupled that with a feeling of embarrassment to be at the back of the pro field. And it feels like when you to race, to come in last in the pro field is something that I didn't want to do. But that doesn't mean you have a bad day. That just means there's just very high racing. And so I really didn't want to DNF. I pushed through that race, and that was a really, really tough day trying to get through the rest of that bike. I could no longer ride an arrow. And then when I was running through the aid stations, I couldn't reach out and get water because that hurt my rib cage too much. So stopped eating as much as I should have, stopped drinking as much as I should have. And that took a lot of confidence out of my sail when I finished that, to have the first pro race also coupled with a pretty bad crash. It definitely took a long time for me to come back. And so initially in my rookie year, I had a lot of races lined up. I had a lot of things on the schedule, and we had to shift away from a lot of those to allow for recovery. And so the next race that I did wasn't until Ironman Chattanooga, which was half of a year later.
Wait,
But
no. You
What?
raced your hometown race, Michigan 70.3.
I did. I had Michigan 70.3. That was, gosh, I love that race. Can we put in a push to get that back as a pro race? Because that is top tier racing. But yeah, I think it's just an unrecognized pressure that comes with racing as a pro that has been an interesting thing to navigate through.
Did you feel that same pressure at Michigan 70.3, at Ironman Chattanooga, which were not pro series races and did happen after you had that first experience? Did the pressure still happen?
Yeah, the pressure definitely happens. It's becoming more manageable every race that I do. I think that I had the most at that first race. Michigan 70.3 feels like a lot of friends out on the course. It's close to my hometown. I've done the race multiple times. So I had a lot of confidence going into that. It's definitely more pressure than it is in the age group field, but now I know more people on the start line. I find it more fun than I do pressure filled. And that is one of my goals when we talk into going into next year. It's to really regain the love of the race and to regain the love of the sport in doing it, and to still continue to uncouple the pressure that you feel that comes with it.
And this fear of getting last, I don't think you were last in any of your races, right?
I wasn't, no. But I was racing to, yes.
I mean, I find
didn't
it
want to.
fascinating because it does definitely keep a lot of women probably from racing pro, because it is very interesting how you can have the exact same performance and win your age group or be close to last or near the back of the pro field. And in both cases, you probably make $0. But one feels a lot better than the other, even though it's a very, very exactly the same race. You might go exactly the same time, make exactly the same money. And I find that psychology very fascinating. Also, as someone who has actually been last in a pro race, that's me. I'm the only one I know who's actually done that. No, I know a few other people, but I mean, your life does still go on.
Yeah, and at the end of last year, I did a mountain bike race and I raced in the age group field and I ended up winning my age group, and it felt incredible. you get to stand on a little podium as in the age group, and it felt really good, and I was really excited. And also, I was also considering racing in the pro field for this mountain bike race, and that would have put me in the, middle of the pack, lower part of the pack. And I know that I would have been really disappointed had I have raced the pro field with the exact same time, the exact same everything. And so I do think the psychology of it is really fascinating I don't know, it does feel better to race towards the front, but in the big scheme of things, it also feels really good to challenge yourself and to put yourself against the best competition and to see where you're at.
And so that's what keeps you going. Why for 2026 you are still racing in the pro field.
Yeah, I feel like I haven't been able to have that race as a pro that I feel like things went right. I feel really good getting to the finish line. I just feel like I still have unfinished business in the pro field. And when I qualified for my pro card, it was a 3-year pro card. And I do want to not have what ifs and to give everything I can on that race course and to say I checked all the boxes. And the last 2 years, I've raced with a lot of comparison and a lot of feelings of inadequacy and the fact that I shouldn't be here or maybe I'm not good enough for being here. But this year, I really want to go in with a mindset of curiosity and having fun. And I am a human that if I perceive that what I'm doing is fun, I'm going to race exponentially better. If I'm enjoying it and I'm smiling and I'm interacting with the crowd and other racers, I always am able to find another gear. When I'm very cerebral and in my own brain and feel inadequate or don't feel in a good headspace, those are the races that I never seem to do good. I'm not great at like getting out of myself and getting out of my own way. So I would love to go into this year with just a let's have fun, let's find the joy in this all, and let's see if that mindset can really change things.
Is that what you would consider that successful pro race? I mean, it's hard to measure joy. Are there any other metrics, time metrics, placing metrics that you think would be like, okay, that was worth it?
I don't think so. I want to step over the finish line and say I gave absolutely everything I could and I dug as deep as I possibly could on that day and I enjoyed the process to getting there. I never mind finishing on empty. I get more mad at myself when I know that there was another gear. I know that there was more in me and I wasn't able to get there. I wasn't able to get myself to that level of hurt or that level of performance. And so a victory to me is just feeling like I got everything I could out of myself on the day.
It's a very mature perspective, and I think it shows going into your third pro year how things are different, and I can reflect a little bit on my own pro career, and I think the nerves, I don't know if it's imposter syndrome, but just being like, what am I doing with my life? I could be sleeping in right now, and instead I'm about to go exercise for a ridiculously long amount of time, and not just exercise, but honestly, like go really, really hard. There is something to it, I will say, as someone who I raced 4 years as an amateur, 12 years as a pro, of being in the front of the race. And there's a few perks I would tell people. I'm like, I enjoy starting in the front. I enjoy that visibility. If you have people cheering, it's a little easier to find you. You sometimes get slightly better weather. I mean, it doesn't usually get cooler as things go on, so it's nice to start earlier. Sometimes you get pro porta potties. Sometimes you do get extra cheers and fame and occasionally fortune for a very few people. But I think, and ultimately you do get to know for the rest of your life that you put yourself out there. And I think that might be, as someone who's, 2 months retired and so wise now and knows everything about it, just that knowledge. And you listened to the episode I did with Jocelyn and that first episode where she talked about, she's further into retirement than me and how it's helped her get jobs. Like having that on her resume that she raced as a professional triathlete for 3 years, it has helped her stand out in her professional career.
Yeah, in every job application I've ever done, I put at the bottom like special interests and I list it out. And in a lot of opportunities at life, it has been that co-passion of something that's listed in the special interest that has really opened the doors, whether that's running or triathlon or really any of that. I mean, I am a human that if you give me an opportunity to chat about anything triathlon based, I am so excited. And that's a reason that I am not in the operating room as much as I used to be. But the operating room is like the best opportunity to have a captive audience. Like there is nowhere that anyone can go for. I mean, I was in a couple 8-hour OR cases. So for 8 hours, you are just staring at one another. You will often have music in the background, but you just get to yap for 8 hours about whatever your special interest is. And mine is usually like triathlon racing or running or something of the sort. But it really does open up a lot of doors. And
1 hour
I love
podcast is not enough for you. We should have made this. We should have changed the format.
I mean, it's so lovely. I always feel like some of the best podcasts could come from the operating room of people just like, hey, we have nothing to do. And it feels really good because
you're doing a surgery. Like
you're doing you are doing
happening.
a surgery. Yes, absolutely. You are focused on that, but you also, it feels good to connect to the humans around you. Like it is very much a community thing. And the best OR cases are the ones where everybody knows what the next person is doing before the surgeon is doing something. Everybody else is about 3 steps ahead of them and knows what's coming. And so you get to it's like this beautiful theater art that just happens. But in that you do talk too most of the time. Or listen to the music.
Because it's made this transition to podcast co-host seamless for you. As you mentioned, you're a fan of the sport. You are a huge fan of triathlon, and we get to talk about this a lot. If you are like reflecting on the 2025 season as a fan and going into 2026, what are you most excited about as a fan of the sport?
Haley, I had the same question for you because I want to hear what you're going to say too. But I love it all. I love the Pro Series and I love the through thread that the Pro Series has been able to create. Love the T100. I am excited to see a little bit less racing in the T100 and allow women more of an opportunity to build and recover. You know, I think, they say that fans of the sport just love to watch racing. But as a fan of the sport and somebody who is in the sport, watching how tired a lot of those women were by the end of the season, I felt it to my core how exhausted so many athletes were by the time they got to T100 Dubai. And I mean, post Kona, the 70.3 World Championships, the sport is very much promoting over racing right now. And to see that slow down a little bit, I think will be really good. But seeing increased opportunities for female athletes is so exciting. I'm really excited to see the new T100 format. I am getting more and more into the WTCS. I love watching that. And I love starting to hear these buildups that are starting in anticipation of the Olympics. The strategic planning that comes into that to getting yourself at the highest level when the Olympics come. And then I'm very excited for the Pro Series. I am going to can we talk about the races that we're doing? Is this like
yes.
a good...
I mean, yes. Okay, talk about your race plans for 2026.
Well, I'm very excited for the Pro Series, but I'm going to do New Zealand, and that is a Pro Series race, and I'm excited to race it, but I'm also just excited to see what athletes are there. This is one of the first years that we have a pro Ironman race this early in the year that is not Ironman Texas, or there will also be Ironman Texas, so I think it'll be really cool to see who comes over to New Zealand and who does Ironman Texas and who decides to do the Pro Series and what the T100 looks like now that they don't have contracts, and there's going to be a little more fluidity in who is coming to those start lines. I think that'll be really cool.
Yes, as someone who has, raced a little bit in the T100 and in the Ironman Pro Series, I'm excited about both, and I agree with you to an extent that there is an incentive to over race right now. But as someone who raced into her 40th year as a professional, I do think there are alternate paths that an athlete can take. And I use myself as an example. In 2025, I only did 2 pro Ironman races. I did Ironman Texas, where I finished 8th, and then I did Ironman Hawaii, where I finished 20th. And I actually finished in the Ironman Pro Series, I think like 37th maybe, and did qualify for a little bonus. And I was surprised. I was very fascinated. I didn't go into the year planning to race the full pro series. I thought wrongly that to be competitive in the Ironman Pro Series, I needed to do 3 full Ironmans or at least have 5 races that counted, because that is how many can count in the Ironman Pro Series. It is 5 races up to 3 Ironmans, and Ironmans are worth more points. So I thought you would have to fill up, basically your whole card, and I didn't. I did 2 races. I did have 2 very solid races, 2 very solid Ironman races, and but I was able to make a little bonus. And so it kind of showed me that to win the pro series, yes, to get the big payouts, those top 10 payouts, you probably do need to do 3 Ironmans, do 70.3s, and do pretty well at all of those. But there is a path to kind of making it in the sport a little bit. I don't know if I'd say making it, but paying enough for your, to break even without over racing. It does just take following your own path, which does take a certain level of confidence and also might not be the most popular with your sponsors. It's one thing for me to do it when I was, a slightly more established athlete and I had my own very, very personal goals for 2025. And so it was a little bit easier for me to follow my own path. But I do think there is a way to do that. I also think it's fascinating. I've seen a few athletes who were able to race North American 70.3s last year. I think Grace Alexander was one who did I think she did maybe 1 international trip and did well. Lots of podiums, which I'm assuming would qualify her for some sponsor bonuses, making a paycheck at, I think, every single race she did, and did not do any world championships. And so I think there are kind of different paths that you can carve out for yourself in the sport right now. And it is kind of exciting. If you are not someone who is interested in doing 3 Ironmans a year, or you're not someone who's interested in racing on the T100 series, I think as long as you probably have another source of income and that can kind of help pay some of those bills, there are alternate paths you can take and probably still have a fulfilling career.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And I think also bringing up the sponsor requirements, I feel like a lot of people don't really talk about that on if there is pressure to do the Ironman Pro Series versus T100 versus North American races if you are a North American athlete versus that with some local races. But yeah, I think, looking or trying to uncover what the sponsor requirements are, I always feel like there's this big, you can't talk about sponsorships. You can't talk about what's actually needed. I think a lot of athletes probably do have NDAs and they can't talk about it. But I do wish that there was a little bit more transparency on what is paid for, what is encouraged, what is voluntold to do versus what do you want to do as an athlete.
Yeah. I mean, how are you feeling about that going into 2026? Do you feel like you have sponsor obligations? Is that one of the reasons you're going to New Zealand? Why did you pick New Zealand?
Yeah, so my first year, I tried to piece together my sponsorships, and that is amazing. And I love the autonomy of that. It's also a lot of pressure too. It's like an added part of this whole pro experience. So starting last year, I joined a team called the Octagon Elite Team, and they, all of the brand partnerships work with the club, and then we're told what our requirements are. A lot of the requirements for the team that I am on revolve around social media and about being brand forward. And there's pressure to race. We should be racing. And when you are racing, you should be brand forward. You should be promoting yourself in an appropriate way, and you should be highlighting your brands, but they don't tell you how many races you need to do. They don't tell you where the races need to be. And it's also nice because it takes away the step of finding the brands and making the contracts. All of that's done for us. In addition to that, you get a really awesome opportunity to be part of a really great team and be alongside both other pro and amateur athletes who are all chasing the high end of the sport. So I am an athlete who loves being on a team. I love a community aspect. I do much better when I perceive that I am on a team or I am doing things for other people. And this team has really allowed me the opportunity to have that feeling and to feel like I'm bringing in a team sport into a very individualized sport. So I'm not pressured to do Ironman New Zealand. I'm doing that because I think it sounds really cool and it makes me excited. And at this part in my career, I want to do races that like really get me excited to be on the start line. But it is cool to be supported by such a cool group. And I really do love the brands that I'm working with and the teammates that I get to line up alongside.
And the social media part, tell us a little bit more about your social media, I don't even know the word, existence, because you do quite a bit of social media.
Yeah, it's something that's ever evolving. Feel like I am probably very wired to be a right brain human and to be a creative and to have some type of creative endeavor. But I have kind of paved the way into left brain STEM medicine, a very scientific and analytical path for my life. So I very much followed that path until a couple years ago when I was like, it feels really good to create things and it feels really good to stretch or bring back the creative part of my brain. And social media feels like an opportunity to do that. I don't feel the best when I'm consuming a large amount of it, but I really love the creative aspect of it. And it also has opened up so many friendships that I would not have found otherwise. And so I think social media is cautiously good. I enjoy it. I just also like you need to put up little barricades around it. But
How do you do that? What are the barricades? Do you like put your phone
I
in
don't
another
know.
room? What are you? Tell me.
So well, in the morning when I wake up, I do most of my workouts really early in the morning. So I like get up and I get a coffee, but I don't allow myself to get on social media until I am doing the workout, like specifically if I'm on the bike. So it feels like a little carrot for me to like do my morning routine and get on the bike. And then I get to like open up my social media app and I'm like, it helps me get to that stage as compared to I won't like lay in bed and scroll.
So you
I don't
get on
know.
social media and then you start reading a novel?
Yeah. Yeah.
The ultimate multitasker.
I don't know. But yeah, and I
Okay.
think, a lot of the brands they want you to be social media forward. And Instagram is not my most favorite of the social media apps, but that's the one
What
that
is
a lot
it?
of
What's your favorite? TikTok?
I love I love TikTok. TikTok to me
Okay.
just I think it's the creative music backdrop that you get on TikTok like warms my soul a little bit. But the other one that I really like is Substack. Are you on Substack yet? I feel like I haven't seen
No.
you if you are.
I am
Substack's a
on.
good one.
That's like writing a newsletter. Is that right? Or writing a blog? Are you on Substack?
Yeah. I
I
am
don't
on
even know this
Substack.
one. I've missed that
Yeah,
as your
Substack
coach.
is lovely, but TikTok is great. I respect the humans that could do YouTube. I always am like, I would love to start a YouTube channel. I think that sounds fantastic. And it's really hard if you're your own videographer. I feel like the people that like really make it a success, they have a videography team and they have people who are shooting them and they have people who are around to help with editing, but it'd probably just like be me in a selfie view for most of it. But you do a really great job with your Instagram. You've grown a
That's so
lot in
kind.
it.
That's so kind of you.
You no,
This is a good conversation for our topic for our next conversation. I feel like we should go more in depth on social media because I would love to share a lot of the things I tried. I think I am someone who likes to try things and I have a lot of thoughts on what works, what doesn't work. And I also might get you to help me. Maybe we can put some like pieces of this on TikTok because that is a new frontier for me that I resisted for a long time. Taylor Swift and the Eras tour live streaming got me to get an actual account. I finally caved, but I have I had to put a like I was like, there's too many platforms. I just was like, I can't do new things. But now I'm in as I'm retired, I feel like I'm in a new time of creativity and learning for myself. And I'm like, this is good. I don't want the world to leave me behind. I would like to learn the things that the youth are doing. And I feel like I have the time and energy and I'm not feeling that pressure at the races anymore. So I'm like, what do I do? What do I do with this energy? So maybe that's something I should do for the new year. That could be my resolution. Let's
you
post
could
something
get
on
on
TikTok.
TikTok. I love
What's
it.
your
I love that for
resolution
you.
as we end this conversation? Do you have any New Year's resolutions?
My New Year's resolution is to I probably should have thought about this because I knew this question was coming and I didn't put a lot of thought into it. But really, it's to find joy in multiple different areas of my life and to continue to develop into being a more well-rounded human. And my goal is to say yes to more things.
Yes to more things. Well, you kicked the year off, right? Co-host. I think this is the first podcast you've ever actually co-hosted. Is that right?
This has been lovely. Yes, this is a dream come true. But what I want to hear your New Year's resolution.
I told you, post on TikTok.
Okay. I didn't know that was actually it. I love that for you. This is fantastic. I'll hold you to that.
Please do. Please do. At
Beautiful.
least. Yeah.
Great.
No, I mean, I feel like this show is a little bit of my reintroduction into social media life. And I want to try things like that, like posting on TikTok. And I do have a little bit of one of the good things about me is I have a higher tolerance for being embarrassed, I think is one of my, traits as a human, I think. And so I am the person that can be out there. I'm like, I will post the TikTok that gets 0 views and I'll be fine with it. Or 3 views and one of them's my neighbor. And then they're like, oh, you had 3 views. And I'm like, yep. So
I'll be one of the views.
Thank you.
Yeah, like embrace like putting yourself out there. I think that's lovely. That is such a cool trait.
Yes. Well, we'll see how it goes. Happy New Year, Katie. Happy 2026. I'm excited to follow your training and adventure and document it here leading into Ironman New Zealand and beyond. There is more. There's more to life after March, but first big step. It's fun to have you on the show as someone who is actively still racing and keeping us in touch with what that is like, and also as a huge fan of the sport. So fun to chat with you.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, this has been so lovely. Thank you.